This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com. Sorry, we're a little delayed. I got carried away chatting with none other than a man that's appeared on The Haunting many times, author of numerous books, including his latest one, Tales from an Exorcist. He's a spiritual deliverance minister. He has some wrestling experience as well. He's an expert in the paranormal, and he's also, you could call him an exorcist. Reverend Bill Bean, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Thank you for having me back, Hannibal. I appreciate it. It's always great to be on with you.
Yes, and sadly, the last time I talked to you, I was actually on your show, and one of your co-hosts unfortunately passed away. So I'm sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. Yeah, Kev Baker. He was such a great guy, and we worked together. I would imagine for a couple of years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years. And I noticed towards the end there, he was just not looking good, and he was losing a lot of weight. And they say that his death was a result of COVID-related illness or whatever, a variety of things associated with COVID that pretty much shut his lungs down. And but he already had COPD anyway, so he was at high risk. And just horrible, Devin. He was such a good guy, and you were on with us, and he really thought the world of you. And I miss him very much, and I've had some vivid dreams about him where he was speaking to me in the dreams, and he's not the only one. This is some people might think I'm crazy for saying this, but I assure you, everything that I say is true. It might sound bizarre, but the truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. And I have these time frames that I go through, and they're random when they happen, but sometimes it'll last for a couple of months. And I just went through something like this recently, to where I was having these dreams, and I don't get to sleep until after 6:30 a.m. every morning. But when I do, I try to sleep, 4 or 5 or more hours, as much as I can. But during the course of being asleep like that, I would have these very vivid dreams of Kev and my mother, my father, all my dearly departed loved ones. They seem to be coming to me in my dreams, including my little dog. So you've got Piper, and I had a little dog like that named Baby.
Yeah, she's actually here.
Hi, Piper. Hi there. We had Baby for 16 years, my wife and I. We got her when she was 6 weeks old. And I still have vivid dreams. It's like she comes to visit me in dreams, just like, my other departed loved ones. I can't explain it except to say that it is very, very real. And it's a good feeling, because I'll tell you, Devin, the dreams that I used to have of my mother were horrible dreams, because she suffered so much in my childhood in a house that came straight out of hell, if you ask me. And she was physically abused for many years, and physically abused by my dad, who was a good man but made some horrible choices and became a raging alcoholic, who physically abused my mother on a regular basis for several years before he left us in 1975. I was 9 years old. And then my mother came under regular physical attack from demonic entities that were in our home and around our family. And I also came under physical attack from age 5 to probably age 12. So I know what it's like. I've been down all the long and hard and dark roads in life. So I would have, and my mom, neither of my parents lived to see the age of 50. My mom died of a cerebral hemorrhage at the age of 44. And I had to quit school in the 8th grade, lie about my age, and go to work for a construction company. And boy, was that ever tough. I was a skinny kid that was suddenly thrown in with these really tough guys, and made me a pretty hard and tough guy. And but I grew up on the streets. I drank, I used drugs, I hung out with some of the worst people. Most of those people are dead or in prison. I could have very easily ended up there as well. But for a year, and my dad was shot to death at age 48. And so again, neither of my parents lived to see the age of 50. But concerning my mom, when I would have these dreams, prior to how it is now, I would have very traumatic dreams, about her suffering and being tormented and attacked in that home. And I'd wake up in a sweat, and it was just awful. I had those types of dreams for years. And so I'm happy to tell you now that the dreams that I have of my mother and my other loved ones, including my little dog baby, are always very good and positive dreams.
Yeah, I had an unusual dream in here about a month ago. I've been in this place around a year now, and it's kind of in the forest on the water. And yes, I know you're anti Ouija board, but I actually tried to use a Ouija board several times in here, and nothing, uh, no response at all. But then, just after the summer weather started to go away, there's screen doors, and I opened the screen doors to let a breeze go through
Okay.
my house. And on this particular night, I was having horrible nightmares all night. And then after I'd been up a few times, I had another nightmare where a voice came to me and said, "The evil is coming from outside. Shut your screen doors and windows." And I shut the windows, and I slept like a baby the rest of the night. So I found that very interesting, that maybe the inside there is nothing, but there's something out there that can make its way in. I don't know.
Well, our whole existence, our whole way of life, certainly our world now is stranger than fiction. And these things are very real. The spirit world is very real. Um, Obviously, God, Yahweh is real. Yahshua, Jesus the Christ, the Holy Spirit, the holy angels, the heavenly host, and the devil and demons. They're all very real. I've experienced it all. I've lived the life of 10 men when it comes to these types of experiences. And in your case, I'd like to get with you soon to where we can have a phone session or even a Skype session or something to where I could say blessing over you and over your home and your land and property as well. Because with the Ouija board type of stuff, even though you don't think anything's happening now, that opens a doorway. It literally is part of invocation, and that could cause you a lot of problems. And though you're not having anything right
Maybe it
now,
has.
yeah. So I would suggest, as a friend, that we have a conversation here in the very near future, to where you allow me to pray over you and clear you and clear your home and your land and property as well. It's very important. So when I go into these types of situations, in how I help people. And look, I'm nothing special. I don't claim to be anything. I'm just an agent that God works through to help people. And I'm very thankful to God for that. It's the greatest feeling in the world to know that God actually worked through me to help somebody to become free from something like that, to where they can move forward and have a quality of life. It's wonderful. So in that, I have to take certain steps and preparations. And so if I'm going to a person or a family, when I arrive, the first thing I do is I say a land blessing. I have to bless that land. I ask God to bless, heal, cleanse, and forgive any wickedness or bloodshed or transgressions that may have taken place on the land, on the property. So then I declare it, after that's all clear, I declare it to be blessed, healed, sanctified, purified, cleansed, and made holy before God. Then I enter into the home and I say several more prayers inside, including a house blessing prayer. Then I anoint everyone's heads with a combination of holy water, holy oil, holy salt. And then I sit down and I have to become a counselor. And it's not that I want to know everybody's deep and dark secrets. I have to know them in order to get this stuff up and out and off. So the devil deals in legalities, legal rights. So if he feels he has a legal right to be there, he will be there. And just as God sends angels to us, the devil sends demons to us as well, just waiting for openings. So I have to reach and that requires a lot of trust, Devin. When a person has suffered lots of trauma, and not in all the cases, but a good deal of the cases, that trauma is like child molestation, rape, violent crime, being physically abused, mentally abused. It starts in childhood, and those demons come in. So they're not only on the perpetrator, but then when that high level of trauma is established, then they will come on to the victim, and they'll stay there until someone like me comes along, God working through me to evict them. And so it's very much a process. It's not just me walking in and saying, and taking power and authority, which I am very aggressive. That's my approach against demonic forces, because if God's with me and for me, then nothing's going to stand against me, including them. And so that requires a very high level of faith, because I'm telling you right now, if you were with me and had witnessed some of the things that I have and been in some of the situations, you would rub your eyes and go, did I really just see that? Did that really just happen? There would be other people that would faint, soil themselves, turn around, run, a variety of things. But it's only by the power of God that I can do what I do. And I'm very thankful to him for that.
What do you think about some of these voodoo religions in like Jamaica and Haiti, where they claim they could like turn people into half donkeys and stuff? And there's some videos floating around out there of that type of thing in these kind of more third world areas of those places.
It's very real. Now I've never seen anyone turned into an animal or something, but there are shapeshifters out there, and I believe that, like Skinwalker Ranch, those werewolf type of entities, and all. I absolutely believe that, and I have had cases with people and families that were either engaging in those practices and placing curses on people, or having curses placed on people. And in two of those cases, the target that had the curses placed on them actually met an untimely death in two of those cases. I have also been involved in cases where the voodoo or Santeria or Brujeria or whatever it may be were placed on these people, and they were going through hell. And I've seen people under that, and where they came under demonic possession, foaming at the mouth, eyes changing colors, body limbs twisting and contorting in ways that a human body cannot, without snap, crackle, and pop, without bones breaking and ligaments tearing and all that kind of stuff. I've seen it. And so I know it's very, very real, and it's very dangerous.
Yeah, there's a video out of this guy that supposedly committed adultery and had a voodoo spell put on him, and his legs got turned into like donkey legs
I was going to
supposedly.
say, look at that right there. What in the world?
Yeah, so there is, it's like a third worldish video, but I think it's from Haiti or Jamaica, and this guy's actually moving the donkey legs, and everyone's
I don't know
gathering.
if I buy that. I'd have to
Yeah,
look at that video, because here's the way to really tell. If a person is under that type of affliction, they're going to be experiencing, like the eyes rolling back in the head, or going white, or all black, or sometimes red, or even like a yellow green color. Foaming at the mouth, growling. The tongue sometimes comes out like a serpent, goes all over the place. Could be projectile vomiting, all these types of things. There's going to be something like that associated with some type. If we're seeing a transformation like that, there's going to be something else associated with that. He's not going to sit there calmly, and all of a sudden these things are going to magically change, and he's going to sit there calm, cool, and collected. That ain't happening.
yeah. Supposedly that was a punishment put on him by something, but I knew somebody from one of those countries that was telling me about it, and it showed me that, and I'd never heard of anything like that before.
Yeah, those places, Devin, are steeped they are steeped in that type of thing, and it's a constant thing back and forth. So Haiti, Jamaica, all those types of places, man, it is all about placing the curses, hexes, vexes, and spells, and the voodoo, and all those types of things. Very, very dangerous.
I even recall in Puerto Rico, some of the towns had voodoo associated
Oh
with.
yeah.
This person has a question for you and wants to know if you think there's any spiritual factors or spiritual prophecy connected to the Russia and Ukraine war, and what are your thoughts on the world's future right now?
Well, I always try to see the good in things and the best. I try my best, but unfortunately, I can't in this current state of affairs, and certainly in this situation. I said um, when this first happened that this was the beginning of World War III because I could see clearly how this was going to play out. And right now, the United States is indirectly involved, and the involvement is becoming more and more prominent, as we progress in this. So I pray that I'm wrong because I don't want to be right. I want to see peace in the world. I want to see everybody happy and flourishing and doing well. But Devin, I have to tell you, I see things on a daily basis, and not only just in my cases of helping people, but the world just seeing the sun doesn't look the same anymore. The moon doesn't look the same anymore. We are seeing the most wicked and bizarre things taking place, especially in America and the world. So I believe, and this is strictly my opinion, God did not tell me this. I'd be a liar if I said, "Oh, I'm a prophet and God told me that." It's not true. But I believe very strongly that we are in the last days, and the with this conflict that has been initiated, it is. And I don't want to be right about this. I pray that you and I come on again and you say, "Bill, you were so off, you were so wrong," and I'll say, "Thank God." But I really believe that this is leading us in to World War III, and it is not good. It is not good at all. The things that could result from that, boy, Devin, could be cataclysmic for the world. And I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just speaking the truth. I say it every week when I do my little service show. I say to people, please consider coming back to God now, because the time is getting short, and it's getting shorter by the day, and there might not be a tomorrow. So you want to be right with God before all this comes down. So that's my best advice is I didn't come on your show to preach a sermon, but I came to speak truth. And the truth of the matter is that we are in some troubled times, and God is the only way. And he'll make a way for us, and he'll keep a covering over us. So if all this does come down and he doesn't evacuate us from the planet, which I hope he does, but if he doesn't, then he will keep a covering over us, just like it was for Daniel going into the lion's den and the men going into the fiery furnace. He will keep a covering over us. So you want to be right with God, because you don't want to be on the other side when all this comes down. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't mind some purification of this channel here and there. For sure, we're trying to stay on the good side lately, and I think we've crossed the barrier onto the dark side now that the wrestling business is kind of being put behind me, and I'm moving on to other stuff.
Good
But I
for
was
you.
watching actually in the news today about UFO stuff because, as you know, I research it
Yeah.
all the time, and there was recently a press conference, and I guess there was supposed to be a new UFO report that was due on Halloween from the government's official group, that's the UAP task force or whatever it's called. But it's been delayed. But someone asked this same military official, who I think was representing the Pentagon or something, that some of these drones, it looks like now, some of these unidentified aerial phenomenon could very well be Chinese drones spying on us. Have you heard any of that? And what do you think about all this new stuff? There was recently another Navy pilot that came on Joe Rogan and talked of more of these regular sightings of UFOs above water, and there seems to be that real connection of water. And these things, according to the guy who was on Joe Rogan's podcast, were appearing on pretty much a daily basis for a while.
Yeah. I find it hard to believe. And again, look, I'm not a military expert. I'm not an expert in military hardware, drones, or anything like that. So I wouldn't pretend to know how those things are manufactured, and assembled, and the intimate components of something like that. But I would call myself an expert in the area of UFOs because I've had thousands of sightings and experiences throughout my life, starting in 1977 up into the current. I sent you a piece of video footage from, I think, August 19th it was.
Yeah.
I have these sightings and experiences. I know they're real. I have documented them. I continue to document them. And I always take it back to the Bible. So Psalm 68:17 says the chariots of God are 20,000. So these chariots are divine Merkabah from Yahweh, the Most High God, the creator of the universe. And people say, well, what's he need a UFO for? Why does he need a chariot? I don't know that because I haven't had any contact with God for him to tell me, I didn't have a meeting with him for him to say to me, this is why I use these things. But there are at least 70 scriptures in the Bible that describe UFOs. Even from the very beginning, when Moses was leading the Israelites to the promised land, there was a UFO craft that was above them that gave them shade by day and light by night and fed them manna, bread. And so from the very beginning of the Bible, it's right there. As a matter of fact, if you want to go even further than that, we can, because it says the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the waters and created the world. He spoke it into existence. I believe that he spoke it into existence from that UFO, unidentified flying object, flying Merkabah craft. And so it goes right back to the very beginning of the Bible. Again, why does Yahweh use these things? I don't know. But I do believe that he does, and he has his angels and heavenly host traversing the heavens, which means skies, in flying crafts. So when Hasatan, the devil, Satan, and a third of the angels, the B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, when they were cast out of heaven, they were cast out in those flying craft, and they came down here. And so those craft became Vamana, the demonic craft that came down. And they took human women, had sexual relations with them, created a hybrid offspring of giants called the Nephilim. The Nephilim went into the forest and had unnatural sex acts with the beasts of the fields, ate bears, dogs, wolves, and other things. And that is what the Bigfoot, Sabe, Sasquatch creatures are. They are the offspring of the offspring. So they are every bit as much supernatural as they are a flesh and blood creature. All these things tie together, Devin. I wrote 2 books, Stranger Than Fiction and Stranger Than Fiction 2, that ties all this together because I've had all of these. I've had every type of paranormal supernatural experience under the sun that you can think of. And so my conclusion based on all of that is that it's very much interconnected, all of it.
Why do you think you're so supernaturally connected? Do you think that was just your purpose on Earth to help people with this type of thing, and because you're kind of open to this, these kind of experiences are just kind of drawn to happening to you?
Well, my best guess, and again, God never told me this either, but my best guess would be that now God has given us all free will, so we're free to make our choices. That's why the devil exists in the first place, because he's the adversary to mankind based on man's free will. That said, I think that God does choose certain people and Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but God does choose certain people for certain things before we even come into this world. And I think I happen to be one of those people, for whatever reasons, that God chose me for this mission and this task, that He would work through me to help others, from the very beginning, before I even came into this world. Now, interestingly enough, and you and I have never discussed what I'm about to say, two things happened that I'm aware of, actually four, that I'm aware of, from the time that I was born. Now, the first thing was when right after being born, the story goes, and I can't, my parents are gone and most of my family is gone, so I never really could get the verification other than surface story of what happened. I don't remember it. I was a newborn, so I certainly don't remember it. But something happened, and the story goes that a hair from a nurse wrapped around one of my toes and severed the toe. Now, how's that possible? I don't know, but and I have a scar to this day on that toe that goes all the way around because they reattached the toe. It was severed and they reattached it. So that's the first thing that I'm aware of that happened. The second thing, I believe I was 2 years old, and I suffered a major head injury at the age of 2. Tremendous loss of blood. And again, I don't remember this. I was told by my uncle that it was severe, and they just kept wrapping towel after towel around my head because it was just a horrible injury. So that's what I was told. So then after that, a photograph was taken of me the next year at age 3 in 1969. It was a Polaroid photo, and I guess it was taken by my dad. I was standing in front of these trees and bushes, and yet there were these others in the photograph with me, and 3 looked humanoid that were standing behind me in single file. Another looked like a little gray alien that was standing to my left. Another further over looked like a Bigfoot creature. Another creature had the head of what looked like a lion that was over top of me. All these different types of figures and faces. It was as if the dimensional doorway was open at that moment when the photograph was taken, and all these entities and beings were in there with me. And then there was a photograph before that that was taken with my sister and I. And this was Christmas time, 1968. I was 2 years old. In the photograph, she's to my left. We're seated behind a toy piano, and she's to my left, and in her far left is this very large, looked to be at least 7 feet tall, hooded black figure that's standing in the photo. So those are the 4 things that I'm aware of that took place not long after me coming into the world. So it was almost as if the devil was trying to kill me before I could even get in to the position to where I am now, God working through me to help people. So, and Devin, I've been in many life-threatening situations throughout the course of my life. And even as being this deliverance minister, exorcist, spiritual warrior, whatever you want to say, I've been in life-threatening situations in some of those cases as well.
Yeah. Someone actually told me less than a year ago that I'd probably used up my 9 lives with the amount of life-threatening situations I've been involved with. So I have. That's the one reason why I used to not really believe in anything. But when I think about all the times that I really should have passed away, I have to believe that my purpose on earth hasn't been fulfilled yet.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I'm
I
definitely
completely agree. And I think that God has favor on your life, obviously, because if not, then you would have perished. You would have been gone. So he's had angels there with you to save you each and every time. So obviously he must really love and care about you a lot to be sparing your life like this. And there is more work for you to do on this earth before it's your time to leave here.
Now, just to discuss wrestling for a minute, I interviewed Mario Mancini earlier today, and I know you're kind of an old school wrestling fan. He was
I
one of
remember
the
him.
the enhancement talent.
Yeah.
What did you think about the days when they had enhancement matches regularly and some of those well-known enhancement talent? It seemed to make the stars more like stars, where now there's very few stars and maybe only a handful of guys that if they were to leave the WWE and appear on an independent show would make any difference in an independent crowd, where as in the 80s and 90s it seemed like almost the whole card was stars.
Yeah, and to me, now again, I don't even watch it anymore, but still know the names and I read about things once in a while. I watch your when you're doing the wrestling news and all that. I watch those videos. But to me, that's what's missing now. So when you put on these events that seems like, okay, wow, the guys are evenly matched up, it takes something away, because back then I started watching in, like, I guess 1974, and Bruno was my favorite. He's still my favorite. And so that was special. Bruno didn't wrestle on TV much, but Bruno would come and give the promos about, Wednesday night in Baltimore, Bruno's going to be taking on Ivan Koloff or whoever it may be. And that was interesting. And that was an event. And people would go to that because they wanted to see Bruno, beat up Ivan Koloff. Now, the TV matches were designed to put over the stars and to make them look, unbeatable. And that would generate the interest for the fans to want to go to the event, because, man, they want to see this guy he's beating up everybody. And now Bruno's going to be in the main event against this guy that's beating up everybody. And that was an event. If you go back, Devin, and I do this a lot, I go back to some of those old matches, back in the 70s and maybe even early 80s, featuring Bruno and Chief J Strongbow and Andre and all those stars of yesterday, Gorilla Monsoon, all those people, Superstar Billy Graham. And then when Bob Backlund came in, I watched a lot of Bob Backlund matches, and Ken Patera and people like that. There was an interest in all of these people, and they, somebody like Bob Backlund, he wasn't the best promo guy, but you took him seriously, and he had the real skills to back it up. And so you were interested in him because you knew that this guy was legit. And that's how people, they saw these Bruno. Bruno never wore a ring jacket. Bruno never had any music. Bruno walked to the ring, and the people loved him because they took him seriously and they were emotionally invested in him. And so nothing else mattered. They were emotionally invested. He was the biggest hero that there was. And the people bought in, so Bruno could do anything, and those people were with him. And that, in my opinion, that's what's missing today. You don't have that today. So people like Johnny Rods, Jose Estrada, Gypsy Frank Rodriguez, Pete Darty, Mario Mancini, all these people, they served a purpose and really a huge role, because they were the guys putting over, these stars. And I think that it was necessary for that to happen in order for the interest, for the emotional investment to go into these people.
Did you ever consider being a wrestler at all with your size? Because for people that don't know, Bill is a big guy, tall, and he's still muscular now, but he was more of a specimen in his younger days when you were bouncing and seeing these guys at the club and being in Baltimore, one of the wrestling hotbeds. Did it ever cross your mind?
Oh yeah, I very much wanted to be, and I suffered a devastating shoulder injury that sort of kind of ended that. Prior to that, I had a knee injury from football. I broke my leg, tore the anterior cruciate ligament behind my knee, and it was a pretty bad injury, and it took a while to heal. And so I had that, and then the shoulder thing. Boy, Devin, back then I could bench press 500 pounds. I could do behind the neck presses with 405. I was super strong. I don't have that power anymore. But yes, I very much was considering being a professional wrestler. I knew a lot of those guys. Actually, went with Dwayne Gill. He had the Monster Factory in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And I walked in there one day, didn't know him, just walked in off the street. And next thing you know, he's got me in the office and I'm signing a waiver form, to go into the ring and all that. And he also, our deal would have been if he could have got me to the WWF, which is WWE now, he would have taken a percentage of that contract. And so it all was very promising, but my shoulder just wouldn't hold up. I was supposed to have had reconstructive shoulder surgery. I couldn't afford it. I didn't have insurance. And so I never had the surgery. So I had a lot of problems. Before the injury, I was able to bench press 500 pounds. After the injury, my whole arm, because I not only dislocated the shoulder, I tore my pec, I tore my tricep, my bicep, the labrum, tore it all. It was severe. And my whole arm just swelled out and turned black. And it took me years the doctors told me I'd never lift another weight again. It took me years to come back and I never got back to where it was as far as that type of power. But it took years for that to heal to where I could really lift a considerable amount of weight again. But when I first came back, I was so depressed because here I had this monster strength. And then I couldn't it was a struggle to bench press 135. That's how bad the injury was. And it was devastating, but that sort of ended all my aspirations for becoming a professional wrestler. However, I did, I think it was in 2015, I had 2014 or 2015, I actually did have 2 in-ring performances as a professional wrestler. In St. Paul, Minnesota. Brian Dorn brought me in. He brought me in as a celebrity to make an appearance there for some type of thing, to do a book signing or whatever. And he ended up having me to appear in the ring where they did a beat down on me. And I did like a comeback on them with a double clothesline and all this stuff. So I did have my little moments in the ring there a couple of times.
Yeah, and another wrestling hotbed, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Now,
Devin, I had a black eye from that because I got hit in the eye and, whatever. He said, we're going to be stiff and make it real. I said, okay, that's fine. So I got hit in the eye and he also stood on my neck and he's about 350 pounds. And so I'll never forget the plane ride back. I had the black eye, also had a bruise because we did a shoulder bump. And I had a bruise all the way down. So I definitely got my feet wet in there.
So for those that haven't seen our first interview or familiar with you, because it's actually been a few years now.
Yeah.
I think I've had you on probably 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
You had these supernatural, very traumatic experiences when you were young.
Yeah.
In the haunted house and tons of other experiences. And then you kind of went down a bad path with drugs and alcohol and working in the bars. What was it that got you turned around and into the work that you're doing now?
My life is so horrible, from childhood throughout my teenage years. And I'll try and be brief here. We moved into this house in 1970 and started having these supernatural experiences. Now, again, the family was having these supernatural experiences before moving into the house, but it amplified and magnified once we got into that house. And it was located in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And we came under, my family and I came under regular attack from demonic forces. And it physically affected most of us. And my mom suffered far more than anybody that I've ever seen in my life. And it was a very sad and tragic ending for her and for my dad and for other family members also. So I came from a background of trauma and being in the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living. When she died, and so my dad had left home at age 9 in 1975. she came under regular physical attack from these demonic entities up until the time of her untimely death. She died 2 months after my beloved grandmother, her mother, died. So these were the two closest people to me in my life, and they were suddenly gone. And I quit school in the 8th grade, lied about my age, went to work for a construction company. And then I started hanging out on the streets and drinking, doing drugs, was violent also, and started training in martial arts, boxing, wrestling. I was a very good athlete. I played baseball and football and basketball as well. And I had a lot of bitterness, a lot of obviously trauma, but bitterness as well, and anger for having had such a horrible life, up until that point through those years. And I got to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. I was actually seeking death. I wanted someone to kill me. I wouldn't slit my wrist or take pills, but I would have loved it if someone would have come up with a gun and just pulled the trigger. I would have loved that. I lived my life on the edge, expecting that and hoping for that. And I lived that way for such a long time. And then one day I had an epiphany. And I just decided that I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick of that life. I was sick of just being so hopeless and depressed and just negative, just down and out. And so I decided, and I was serious, I was very sincere. I didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to do drugs anymore. I didn't want that lifestyle anymore. And I reached out to God and I asked him to help me. And I was sincere. And I'm telling you right now, I never went to one AA or NA. God just took it from me. I asked him to take it from me, and he did. I never had another urge for it. That's been, I don't know, probably 34 years or more. And never had another urge for it. I see it as my mortal enemy, because when we are under the influence of alcohol and or a drug, our shield comes down. So all life operates on frequency and vibration. So if we're on high frequency, high vibration, life is good, life is positive, we're moving forward. But if we're on low, life sucks, and there's always a problem, an issue, a drama, and never a solution. There's never an answer. So when we are under the influence of alcohol and or drug, the frequency and vibration comes down, and we are wide open and vulnerable for demonic attack. And there are people out there, I've heard it a million times and I've seen it myself, that go, wow, I was so wasted last night. What did I say? I said that, I did that, this happened, that. They don't remember anything. So what happens is demons are on the standby, and they wait for a person to be in that condition, and then they could come in and literally unplug and plug in and then do a variety of things, because now they've got a host body to do so. And so it's very, very important that people realize this and then take preventative steps and measures against it, because otherwise you're going to be a host body for these entities to do whatever and whatever. And I'll say in my own life, that has happened to me in the past. I saw it happen to my father. My father was a good man, and he was blessed with every attribute necessary to be highly successful in life. However, when under the influence of alcohol, he was a monster. And so I've seen this up close and personal. I've seen it in many of my cases. And so this is why I believe God chose me. I didn't choose this work, Devin. God chose me to do it. I would never have chosen to do this kind of work, because once I got free from it, and I turned to God, and I really sincerely made God first in my life. And when we do that, we have to eliminate certain things out of our life that we know is not good for us. And so that's a process, because we develop behavioral patterns. And when we develop those behavioral patterns, it's very difficult to break that. And so in my own case, it was 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward until I finally got there. And then once I got there, I never looked back. So that is the biggest battle, is breaking those behavioral patterns and able to move forward in that way. So But I never would have chose to do this. God chose me to do it. And I understand why he chose me, because he chooses the people that have been there. I could be the greatest scholar in the world or the most faithful man. But if I've never had the experience, how can I go to someone who's having all these terrible things and they're telling me all this stuff, but we can't relate because I can't understand it. If I haven't had the experience, I can't understand that. So we've got something between us now. We can't come together because I can't relate. But that's not the case. And this is why God called me, because I can relate. People can trust me. They put their trust in me. They tell me their deepest and darkest, most horrible things. And so we could come together. And that's how God can work through me to help to free these people, because we develop that bond and that level of trust.
When you had your issues, were they becoming like a daily thing in your life, or was it more on the nights where you were bouncing after getting into trouble, hanging out at the bar, or going out with the construction workers? Or was it something like where you're waking up in the morning and you're having to drink and do drugs just to function?
No, it wasn't that bad, but it was, like you said, the first part, being with those people and it being in that behavioral pattern to where, and I'll tell you, Devin, I can recall, because I used to drink stuff like Old Granddad and Wild Turkey and Jack Daniels and all those things. And I could feel it. They're called spirits for a reason. I could feel a change taking place. Now I could be like this to where we're talking, we're having a nice conversation, then all of a sudden, as I'm drinking more and more, now I feel like something's coming, and now I'm like almost manic to where I'm ready to be violent. I'm ready to do bad things. And now I'm putty in the hands of the devil to bring forth destruction. I mean, that's how bad that was. And thank God that a tragedy didn't take place to where I could have been spending a long time behind bars, because it was definitely getting to that point. And I'm so thankful to God that he took that from me. It required me to say, I don't want that anymore in my life. And so God knew that I was sincere. And I'm so thankful that he took it from me. And now I look at those things as my mortal enemy. I warn people against these types of things, because they are really that bad. And I say it from personal experience.
Did you have to deal with anyone trying to pull you back into your old ways after? And if yes, how did you deal with that?
I had to, unfortunately, eliminate a lot of people out of my life, because that's what happens too, is that the person, is sincere and doesn't want that anymore. Well, the devil, you better believe he's going to send your buds, your party guys that you hang out with, and or the drug dealer or whoever it is, he's going to send those people right to you to pull you right back in. And so I came to that realization that if I was sincere, then I couldn't have that life anymore, didn't want that life anymore, and I couldn't have those people anymore. And so I had to eliminate. And look, I love people. I have nothing against anybody. But in a situation like that, it's really life or death. And if you are choosing life and you're choosing a new chapter, a new season in your life, well, then you have to completely eliminate that. And that's what I tell people now. It's unfortunate, but if you can't be a blessing to somebody, well, then you can't absorb their curses. You just can't. And if you're in that life, you're going to be reeled back in and absorb the curses. I had a pastor on my show about 6 months ago, Pastor Craig Brown, and he was a drug addict. And he was saying this very same thing, that, he would have these moments of regret and want to be free from it, but then would be sucked right back in because of the network of people, his party buds, that would bring him right back into it, and he would be right back into the pit.
Yeah. So congratulations on doing that and helping
Thank you,
other
brother.
people. Back to the UFOs for a bit. Where
Sure.
do you think it's going now with the whole UFO situation, as we're getting more and more of these official reports, do you think there's going to be further disclosure or anything big coming, or do you think it's just going to trickle out here or there, or do you think there's going to be some type of mass sighting happening at some point in the near future that will put people on the fence more to the believer side? There seems to be more on the believer side than ever, and if they don't believe that they're from another planet, they at least might believe, well, there's something in the sky, possibly drones from another country or something. But what do you think the next few years is going to be for that situation?
I think within the next few months, we're going to start to see a massive display, because you see this increasing now. There are stories daily of pilots seeing these craft in the sky. I mean, more so now than ever before. Pilots that are videoing these objects right out of the plane windows, as they're flying the plane, or the co-pilot or whatever, they're taking footage of these objects in the proximity of their aircraft. And so that's never been done before. So it's absolutely increasing. And I really do, Devin, that, and again, look, God didn't tell me this, so I would be a liar if I said, oh, I'm a prophet. And I'm getting, no, these are my guesstimations, and I'm basing this on what's taking place and how I feel about it. I feel that it is entirely possible that after the first of the year, this could really increase into a momentous event. I'll say it like that. And we'll see. Time will tell. But I do believe that we are heading there now. And this is part of a conditioning for people to accept this as reality. So the more the people are presented the stories and footage, the more they will accept this as part of our reality. So this is leading somewhere big.
And what do you think about science now and more people kind of being more accepting that the spirit is something other than the body? Because this is something I research all the time. And whereas before you had the science people on one side and the religious on the other, now people are realizing that that it's more likely than not that the body is just something that we inhabit
Yeah.
for a period of time, and the spirit is something quite different.
Yeah. And supposedly, when a person passes, they become 21 grams lighter. So is that the soul, the spirit departing? 21 grams lighter, and they can't explain that. So in my opinion, that is the spirit and the soul departing. And it is quite possible that, yes, we have a soul. I believe that 100%. And I believe that, when we pass, either we go up or down, and perhaps there is a second judgment after that. That's all up to God. That's in his hands. That's way beyond my understanding. I also believe that there's a life essence that almost like sort of a second soul, and this could explain the ghostly phenomenon. Now, I will say this, in some of these cases of ghostly phenomena, it's demons impersonating ghosts. They're called familiar spirits, and they will take the form and the shape and the voice and everything of our dearly departed loved ones in order to reel us in for a demonic attack. But in some instances, there does appear to be some type of what we would call ghostly phenomena, and perhaps that is from a life essence that comes from us after we've departed, that stays on the earth and creates that type of phenomenon. Now, even in the Bible, Jesus mentioned when they saw him walking on the water, he said, don't be afraid. I'm not a ghost. It's me. I'm not a ghost. So he mentioned in the Bible about a ghost. So I have to believe that there is something to what I'm saying there, that not only does the soul depart, but this life essence does somehow remain, and perhaps that explains some of the ghostly phenomena.
Yes, and last time I talked with you, it was more in the COVID era, where you were still doing a lot of your exorcisms and dealing with people that had hauntings and things like that through Zoom and Skype, as
Yeah.
unusual as that may sound, and that'll get the skeptics going even more.
No,
But
well,
is it
that's all
back to
right.
normal now?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm not traveling as much as I was. Boy, I was traveling so much before I got severely burned out. I mean, I was taking 2 trips a week all over America. I've helped people in 54 countries around the world, and again, I praise God for that. But it was getting so bad before COVID hit that I would wake up in hotel rooms and I didn't know where I was. It took me a minute to, where am I at right now? What city am I in? Where, and you can relate to that. Anybody that's a lot of the wrestlers have traveled, especially a WWE or WWF wrestler back then, they're 300 days a year on the road. So it's severe burnout. But so COVID was not a blessing, but it was a blessing to be able to have a period of break to where I could re-energize, and was still able to do my sessions via Skype, via Zoom, via phone. And for those of you out there who think that that's impossible, and you could think that, that's fine, but I can assure you that it is possible, because just as Hannibal and I are having this dialogue right now, we're not in the same room together, but we are very much together in that we are having a dialogue, and we're having a very good dialogue. And there's a blessing in this dialogue. It's the same thing if I'm on with a Skype or Zoom or whatever. I have intent by the power of God working through me to help someone and to help them to become free from whatever their affliction is. And therefore, through my faith, I believe 100% that God works through me to help these people. And so whether you believe that or not is entirely up to you, but I can assure you that it is very real. And I have an endless list of people that could attest to that and give a testimony that, hey, this really happened and God really did work through this guy to deliver me from whatever it was.
I remember you and I talked a little bit around Scott Hall's death, because for some reason that hit everybody hard. Because it was like he was like someone we all really identified with our childhood around my age, and he didn't seem that old. But it came out through DDP and other sources in the months after his passing that I guess for several years, I guess he had gone back to drinking and stuff. Do you have any thoughts on his passing and just he had an amazing life, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it sounds like the end might have been able to have been at least delayed a little bit longer.
Yeah. And Scott, I never met Scott, but we did have an indirect dialogue. He had some kind of, I can't even remember what it was. I don't know if it was a Facebook or a MySpace or something. And he had these ladies that were running the page for him. And I had sent a message one time, and this was when I first started my ministry. And for some reason, I don't know, God was really putting him on me to try and reach out to and to help. And I let them know, I said, look, this might sound crazy to you, but please get a message to Scott that we don't know each other. I've never met him, but I would like to help him. He needs help. And please let him know that, God is really putting it on me to make an attempt to help. And they got back to me and said, Scott really appreciates that, but he's not interested at this time and all that. So I really felt bad. It's a shame that we couldn't have connected, because I certainly would have done everything that I could do by the power of God working through me to have helped him. DDP, I don't think I ever told you this, Devin. DDP and I know each other. I think it was maybe 2013, something like that. I've had several movie opportunities, about my life and signed movie options and all that kind of stuff. And it was during this period of time that there was they were going to make a movie about my life, and all the funding fell through. But I wanted DDP to be a part of that movie. He was going to actually be in that movie. And so we did, and Snitsky as well, Gene Snitsky. He was also going to be in the movie. And but the funding fell apart, and the whole thing fell apart after that. But I really wish that I could have gotten an opportunity to meet Scott Hall and help him. Now, I don't know anything about him other than this. Apparently, he was born here in Maryland. His dad was a military man, so he traveled around quite a bit as a child and a young man. And like us, he got into the bar bouncing business and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, had an incident with someone where they were killed during his altercation with the individual. Supposedly, he pulled a gun on him or something, and the guy got shot with his own gun, whatever. But I think that had a big effect on him. Now, did he have problems before that? He may have. I don't know. But when something like that takes place, that's trauma. That is, a very traumatic event. And that in itself could have been the catalyst for him reverting back into that world of substance abuse, because some people, most, treat that as an escape from reality. So again, I never got the chance to meet Scott, but based on what I had read about him and heard, it is possible that that could have been the catalyst for his whole thing there with substance abuse issues.
Yeah, and I think if you have the addictive personality and stuff, that's something that'll definitely get it going for sure. And it seems like Marcus Bagwell, another guy DDP has tried to help, may or may not be having a better go at it this time. So I'll give him luck, even though I'm not his favorite person.
Yeah, and that's another guy. It's a shame, and I never met him. I don't know him either, but it's sad when you see people like that, because this is an individual that had a lot of exposure, on TV every week, and I'm sure he made a lot of money. And very, very sad to see someone in that type of state. And I guess, without really knowing the answer, although I've been told by some of my clients, who have been there, that not only does it become part of the daily routine, which again, that's a behavioral pattern, but it is also the place, even though it is the bad place, it is the place of refuge and escape in their mind. I had a client tell me, how can I say this? I have to be very careful. I don't want to divulge any personal information, but let's just say this. He was someone that helped people to get free from this kind of stuff, and he fell into it himself. And so I really pressed him one day when we were having a session in person, and I really pressed him about it. And man, he fired back. He said, because I love to get high and I love it. And I said, well, look, that's the most truthful thing that you've told me during this whole thing. So I appreciate you telling me the truth. Now, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to deal with it? So, in some instances like that, Devin, when you're a counselor or minister or whatever, you got to get aggressive and tough sometimes and really press buttons and be prepared for the blowback. But that's the way that you can really get to the root and the heart of the matter. Otherwise, it is surface talk. And just like you and I discussed some things off air, it's the same deal. It is a work, and the person will tell you everything that you want to hear, and then they're going to go and do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen that a lot in the wrestling business with various wrestlers. Justin Credible's another one of those lost souls that I had an unfortunate experience with a couple of years ago, when he was pretty much out of it during a match and decided to take his pay and then change the finish to a match after taking his pay.
It boggles the mind. It really does. And it's very, very sad. Again, these are people that, it's one thing if you come from the streets and you come from a background of nothing. And that doesn't excuse what you do, but I can understand that a little more than the person that has been given great opportunity and has made monies and has had great success. And then to just throw that all away for that garbage. It's death. I mean, that's what it is. It's death. And to see that, it just really makes me sick.
I think the problem is with some of them is they do it and then they alienate everyone in their life, and then that's the only thing that will make them happy. But it's really just a brief escape, and it's only getting them in more of a depressing mode because it's just a temporary fix.
Yeah,
And
that's all it is. Instant gratification. Then you want more. Then you want more. Then you want more. And it's never ending. It's a never ending quest. And that becomes the focal point of that type of person's existence, is that they will do anything, and I mean anything, to get to that next high, to get the money, to be able to buy that drug and get that next high. I have, unfortunately, been around people like that. Family members. I've had family members that died from overdoses that were that way, that I had to cut off. And I'm sorry to say that. It pains me to say it, but I couldn't have them in my life anymore because I couldn't be a help to them. So I'm not going to absorb their curses. And I prayed for them, wished them all the best, but I could never have them in my home. They would rob me blind. You can't. And it's so sad to say, but it is absolutely true, Devin. It's very painful as well. But you can't be an enabler to people like this, because they'll just use you up and they'll go to the next person. They don't care about anything other than the next high.
And the sad part is some of these people actually have the WWE rehab coverage, which your average person can't afford 10, 12,000 or more a month.
Yeah.
To actually go to rehab and get fixed. But we've covered a lot of topics on today's podcast. Where can people follow you and tune into your podcast if they want to know more? And where can they get your latest book?
Well, I want to thank you again, brother. It's always a pleasure to be on with you. And I hope that we can talk privately soon. And thank you to everyone out there for watching this. And Devin, you got to, if you were free Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to do something on my little show that I've never done before. And that is to perform a wedding remotely, from my show for this couple, Friday night at 11 p.m. So we're going to have a little Friday night's main event wedding. So if you are available, I hope that you will either come on the show with us, which you're certainly welcome to, or tune in.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't actually ever looked it up, but I never heard of a virtual wedding.
So this will be the first. So we're going to break ground on Friday night. And so, hey, you're welcome. If you want to come on, just let me know, and we'll bring you into the show and be with us. You'll be one of the wedding guests and witnesses to the ceremony.
I think my marriage may have been cursed because it wasn't a religious marriage, because I was with the person for over 10 years before, and then the actual marriage only lasted a couple of years. But it was funny. I actually had suggested that I wanted an exorcist minister to perform it, but she said no. But she did agree to have the wedding in a haunted house. So at least I got married in a haunted house.
Well, if we can have some reconciliation, then maybe I could do the nuptials again. I'm not
actually divorced yet. I'm just separated.
But, well, then we need to talk about that and try and right that ship, because I don't think it's too late.
Very good. Well, we appreciate you coming on, and all the fans always enjoy getting some paranormal content, and we'll let you close this off however you want.
Yeah, and thank you again, brother, and thank you to everybody out there. And if you want to get a copy of the book, Tales from an Exorcist, just go to my website, BillBeanWarrior.com, BillBeanWarrior.com. You can order a copy from the site, and if you want me to sign it, I'll sign it and send it directly to you. If you are in need of spiritual deliverance, and that covers a wide array of things. Yes, I deal with people that are possessed, but there's also demonic oppression, and there are demonic strongholds and attachments and addictions and things of that nature, depression, a wide array and variety of things that come upon people and afflictions and or curses, whatever it may be. If you feel that you are under the influence of something like this, reach out. BillBeanWarrior.com. You can email me directly from the site. We'll get back to you as quickly as I can, or my assistant will get back to you, and we'll get you scheduled. So I guess that's about all I have to say. I just thank you again, Hannibal. I truly appreciate it, and always love being on with you. And I hope that you'll show up Friday night for my little show there, and you're going to be witness to a first of its kind, as far as I know.
I haven't heard of that before. I might be accursed to it, but that it sounds interesting for sure. So I appreciate you coming on. Let's give Billy Graham a blessing. I haven't spoke to him in a few months, but to close this off, why not? He's a great guy.
Let's do it. Father, thank you and praise you for this blessed and appointed time. First of all, Father, I ask that you bless Devin in all of his ways. And I ask that you keep him safe and keep him in your hedge of protection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for life, and bless him with an abundance of love, peace, joy, good health, and prosperity for the rest of his life. And if his marriage can be reconciled, then Father, I pray for that as well. And I pray that you'll work through me to either initiate or officiate the renewal of that marriage. And Father, I also pray for Billy Graham. I ask that you please bless him with everything that he is needing. I ask that you bless him with healing miracles in every area where he is having physical problems. And he too, I ask that you keep him in your hedge of protection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for life, and bless him with an abundance of love, peace, joy, good health, and prosperity for the rest of his life as well. We give you the praise and the thanks and the glory, Father, for everything, forevermore, in Jesus' name.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not